Morning. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. I want you to be happy. I want to be happy. And God wants all of us to be happy. The famous verse, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. God wants us to serve God b'simcha, with happiness, with joy. There has been nearly a century of research on the subject of happiness. And it has led recently to one big finding that each of us can implement. And the research into happiness has had different phases over the last almost 100 years. So, for example, in the 1960s, researchers at that time noted that there had been very little progress in the theory of happiness since Aristotle over 2,000 years ago. And many people, many scientists who studied this at the time, believed that happiness was essentially random. It was not something to cultivate like a garden or to reach for by setting or achieving goals. It's something that happened to people by virtue of their genes or their circumstances or both. The authors of a 1996 study concluded it may be that trying to be happier is as futile as trying to be taller, and therefore is counterproductive. But in 2003, psychiatrist Robert Waldinger accepted a new job at Harvard. And the new job that he accepted at Harvard was to oversee one of the most prized research projects in all of Harvard's history. It was the longest running study in American history on the subject of happiness. It was a rare study that surveyed people over the course of their lives, from young adulthood through old age. And the study began in 1938. Okay, now get this. 1938. This study has been going on continuously at Harvard. So, but about every 30 years or so, a new person has to take it over. And the person who took it over in 2003 was Robert Waldinger. Now, before him, the person who took it over was George Valliant. And in 2001, so this is near the end of George Valliant's period of overseeing this 90-year study, by now almost 90-year study. In 2001, when the people who were in the original study were in their 70s or late 80s, so remember they tracked these people from the time they were in college till they were in their 80s. Valliant published some of his most significant findings, which we have shared before and widely known. He found that one of the best predictors of men's, because they were at the beginning, they were only studying men because it was Harvard, only men. One of the best predictors of men's overall happiness in their old age was how happily married they were at age 50. So if you're happily married at age 50, then even into elderly age, chances are you'd be a happy person. Now, that was what he found after 30 years of research that ended in 2001. Now, so Robert Waldinger took over, as I told you, in 2003. And he's continued this research. and continued to look at other studies that were studying similar subjects. And he found that marriage alone was not enough. It didn't matter if you were married at 50, it mattered how happy the marriage was at 50. Now, those are two very, very different things. But Waldinger, remember, was the fourth director of this study that started in 1938. He was the fourth. And so he had the ability to study the longest range and the most number of subjects and the most amount of data on this subject of what makes a person happy. And he found, when he saw all of this stuff, that there was a tremendous consistency in his own research and in the research that came before him. And it added up to one key insight. This is the whole story. The clearest message we get from this 75-year study, in 2003 it was 75 years, now it's longer. The clearest message we get from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. That's it. Now, in 2016, so we're coming more closer to the present, there were two researchers at the University of Chicago, Nicholas Epley and Juliana Schroeder, building on the research and findings of Waldinger and everybody else. So they conducted an experiment. Listen to this experiment. They asked people to interact with strangers on public transport. So if you get on a bus, if you're on a train, if you're traveling by plane, try to have a moment of connection. Just turn to the person next to you and start a conversation. A stranger. And they found that the commuters seemed to get a mood boost from the exercise. Their research and other studies have found that people underestimated how much they would enjoy the experience and how open the strangers would be to it. Because, and I will confess, I am one of these people. When I get on a plane, usually I think to myself, well, the person next to me probably doesn't want to talk to me, and I should just keep to myself. And that's a fault, and I need to correct this, because in those, I can assert that in those times, especially in this last trip, where I had read this article, I started to put this into practice a little bit. And when I did turn to the person next to me and start a conversation, a complete stranger, it was extremely enjoyable. And the person almost always, in every case in my example, was more than willing to have a conversation. And it was very, very helpful. It made it very, very pleasant experience. Now, that work was important beyond the decision about whether to talk to a stranger on a train. We have this innate reluctance to socially connect, particularly with strangers. I have this. And my normal feeling if I'm on a train or a bus is just I have work, I have reading, just to stay by myself. I have what he describes, this innate reluctance to socially connect, particularly with strangers. And then we're happier when we make ourselves. I'm here to say that I'm proving, I am saying for myself, this is true. And if it's true for me, a natural introvert, the same will be true for you. And Waldinger said, I find it a really useful thing to know. So now, let's come to Sonja Lyubomirsky. Sonja Lyubomirsky worked on this subject at Harvard University since 1985. So she's following all the studies, she's following all the research, she's doing her own research, and she's putting everything together that she sees. All of these studies, everything since 1938. And she writes as follows. After all these years, it hit me. The reason that all these interventions are working is because they make people feel more connected to others. That's it. To make people feel more connected to others. So when I write a gratitude letter to my mom, it makes me feel more connected to my mom. When I do an act of kindness, it makes me feel more connected to the person I'm helping, or just humanity as a whole. Yes, you could go running and that would make you happier. There's a lot of evidence about that, about exercise to make you happier, and you should. You should get exercise, yes. And meditation can also make you happier. So there are ways to make yourself happier that don't have to do with other people. But I would say, now this is a woman who's been studying this since 1985, and she's been studying the entire spectrum of all the research going on since 1938. I would say that 95% of things that are effective in making people happy and that have been shown to be true through happiness interventions are because they make people feel more connected to other people. Talking to strangers on a train, in a coffee shop, at the playground, online at the grocery store, in the waiting room at the doctor's office, could be dismissed as an exercise that simply makes the time pass. But it could also be seen as a moving reflection of how eager we all are, every day, to connect with other humans whose interiority would otherwise be a mystery. Individuals in whose faces we might otherwise read threat, judgment, boredom, or difference, or diffidence. Talking to strangers guarantees novelty, possibly even learning. It holds the promise each time of the inspected insight. So here's the bottom line. It's the bottom line for you and for me, and I hope that we'll put it into practice. If someone were to ask me, what's the one thing you could do tomorrow to be happier? I want to change that. What's the one thing you can do today to be happier? That's my answer. Have a conversation or a deeper conversation than you normally do. That's it. That is literally it. Have a conversation with someone that you were not planning to speak to. And that will bring you happiness because it creates connection with others. That's what God wants for us. That's what all of us want for ourselves. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for me. And now I know what I need to do to get there. Speak to the person next to me. Try it and tell me how it works. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.